Darian Blanchard is taking us to Mars. Do you consider yourself to be a rocket scientist? What does it mean?
Aerospace engineering is a wide field, right? You have your rockets, those type of things, which coming into aerospace engineering and you're expecting 120K, that is probably on the last third of your career. When you go to some of the smaller companies, you have a lot of opportunity to gain experience at a much more accelerated rate. Whereas to gain that experience, and then you could take that to bigger companies and essentially cash out.
Finance for the everyday millennial. Hard charging solutions. We provide an accelerant in the journey towards financial independence.
Welcome to Cassian with Cassian, the financial forum for young professionals. If you've ever wondered what it's like in the life of an aerospace engineer, but also what it's like in the financial life, you're about to find out. After graduating from Georgia Tech with a bachelor's in aerospace engineering, my friend Darian Blanchard served as a systems engineer at Northrop Grumman in Arizona for about 2 years before taking a position at Insights Global as an embedded engineer working on hardware open systems technologies. He currently works at Area I, not to be confused with Area 51, in Atlanta, Georgia, where he serves as a systems engineer, safety engineer on the Maritime Systems Engagement Program. A quick disclaimer here for all those listening: the thoughts, comments, and opinions that Mr. Darian Blanchard is about to express do not reflect the opinions of Area I and are the sole responsibility of Darian. I'd like to start with the first question. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. New to married life, so yeah, everything is going well.
Glad to hear it. I want to know, what is it like in the day in the life of an aerospace engineer?
So what I do on a daily basis can vary, pretty widely. There are some weeks like last week where I went on a flight test, where I was basically working as an assistant payloads engineer while also working with system requirements to make sure that we're hitting our key markers, during our testing. And then there's other times when I'm back in the office where, I could be writing requirements, working on verifying those requirements and test plans ultimately that gets us from, what markers that, determines what markers we need to hit to actually validating those markers in the end game. And then doing troubleshooting for payloads and integrating them and, upgrading firmware and software and all those things. So it varies between those two extremes: flight testing and requirements development.
When most people hear aerospace engineer, they think rockets. Darian Blanchard is taking us to Mars and beyond, right? So what I heard there is, I think, not what most people would expect aerospace engineering to encompass. Do you consider yourself to be a rocket scientist? What does it mean?
So yeah, my degree is in aerospace engineering, and when I was in college, my capstone was in orbital mechanics. But as far as what I do now, these two things are pretty widely separated, right? Aerospace engineering is a wide field, right? You have fixed wings when you're talking about your Boeing 747s, your UAVs, which is what I work on, and those type of vehicles, right? And of course, you also have your launch vehicles, which are your missiles, your interceptors, your rockets, those type of things, which are all encompassed within aerospace engineering, but are separate avenues as far as what your job function can be.
Okay. You said UAVs. For all those not familiar, is that unmanned aerial vehicles?
Yep.
All right. Thank you for that explanation. I also love asking this question: most and least look forward to as an aerospace engineer?
So I think what you most look forward to, as really probably any engineer period, is when you can work with the system hands-on and when you can, be a part of testing, whether it be flight testing, bench testing, ground testing, whatever the avenue is. You want to be able to get your hands on the system, and when you can do that, that's probably what you most look forward to. What I least look forward to is the documentation portion of it. And this is, making sure you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's and your ICDs are correct and your all those other interfaces and all those other things that you kind of have to make sure are in check to say that, yes, we have a system, it's validated, and it'll perform reliably. Now, although that is the least fun part of the job, you could definitely probably say that it is one of the most important parts.
Gotcha. What would you say the time split is between your opportunities to actually work on the systems and documenting those processes?
I'd probably say 70-30 on documenting and then 30% actually hands-on the hardware.
That's crazy. So you really got to love your job because you most look forward to doing about 30% of it, and the other 70% of it is documenting all the cool stuff that you're able to do. All right. So thank you for that insight. We're going to jump right into some statistics about aerospace engineering. According to Indeed.com, the average salary for an aerospace engineer is somewhere between $100,000 and $140,000 a year. And I'd like to point out here that the average changes based on the state, and Indeed shows that the state of Georgia, where you currently live, is about 5% below the national average. And the average student loan debt for people graduating with a bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering is about $24,000, according to educationdata.org. Do either of these numbers resonate with you at all?
To a certain degree. If you're coming into aerospace engineering and you're expecting 120K, that is probably on the last third of your career. Right? 120 to 140K is usually someone who has 12 to 15 years or more of experience, right? If you're coming in as an entry level, now you can potentially expect somewhere between like 72 and maybe 80K. There's definitely a range of salaries throughout your career as far as aerospace. So for me, I came in out of college as an aerospace systems engineer, and those salaries are maybe a couple of thousand less, but in the relative ballpark, if you were actually performing duties of an aerospace engineer, meaning you're, doing like propulsion engineering or you're writing guidance algorithms or something like that.
At any point in time were you offered a higher salary, and did you think it was commensurate with the fact that you were moving to Arizona or from Arizona to Georgia? Or were you offered something in one of those other states like Montana or the Dakotas or something like that with even more money and just declined it for whatever reason?
Yes. So when I was leaving Arizona, I had 4 offers on the table. GTI and Boeing both offered me about 89K. Area I originally offered me 80K, but I negotiated to 85, and that's the job I ultimately chose. And I'll get back to why that was. Northrop Grumman originally offered me 88K to return, and I negotiated that offer letter to 97K. And then plus they also offered me 75K cap in relocation expenses. Ultimately, Boeing did not want to negotiate salaries, so I said, okay, I'm going to, contend with Area I, which was in Atlanta, which was the ultimate city that I wanted to live in, versus Northrop Grumman in Huntsville, which wasn't my top pick for cities, but had the highest salary. Ultimately, the reason why I chose Area I was because it was the high risk, high reward play, meaning that when you go to some of the smaller companies, you have a lot of opportunity to gain experience at a much more accelerated rate. Whereas you go to one of the big players like a Boeing, a Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, it's very easy to get stuck into a slot. And when you try to expand your knowledge, it can be difficult to try to move around, especially for people who are in their early careers. It benefits you to go to a company that is very hands-on to gain that experience, and then you could take that to bigger companies and essentially cash out.
That is strategy right there. I love it. That's really cool. So moving into employee benefits, what are some of the benefits enjoyed by people in your industry that people that are thinking about joining the industry may not be aware of?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the general benefits are relatively the same for a lot of other industries. Health benefits, right now, I pay $0 out of pocket for my entire family working at Area I. So Area I doesn't offer the matching 401k, but they do have stock options through our parent company, Andrew. This is a company that is expanding rapidly. So I will say, since I started at Area I a year and a half ago, my stock options have 6x'd in
Wow.
value. So if you're with a company that's pre-IPO and they're giving you stock options, that is another big opportunity to rapidly expand your own.
I love it. I actually do have conversations with clients at Run Invest about 401k match versus stock options, a combination of the two, them contributing to their own individual retirement account, things like that. So these are definitely things that people who are entering any profession need to be taking into consideration. And a 401k match, I think the average is about 10%. You know,
Yeah.
some firms are lower than that, some firms are higher than that, but 10% 401k match is the average. With you 6xing the value of the stock options provided by Area I, that is incredible. That is going to be a 10% 401k match for sure. So thank you for sharing those things. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right. There is somebody right now sitting in your old desk at Georgia Tech, and they're trying to figure out what barriers to entry might look like for becoming an engineer at a big firm. So if you could please enlighten us on what some of those barriers to entry are.
So obviously the degree, right, is the number one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, if you can get your degree from one of the top universities, will always help. Because I will say for me, my GPA wasn't necessarily in the top echelon, but because I went to Georgia Tech, I was kind of ushered in to one of the big companies. And then I performed, which is really what you want to try to do. As far as barriers to entry, honestly, outside of the degree, there aren't a lot, right? What you want to do is while you're in college, you definitely want to make sure that you're taking part of opportunities where you're working on real systems, where you're doing real design work. If you're, taking advantage of something like the inventor competitions, all those things will definitely put you, ahead of the game and trying to get into one of these big companies. Because for me in the defense industry, defense is constantly hiring. So once you get your foot in the door, you can pretty much do what you want and make the moves that you need.
Okay. You talked about capstone opportunities and different opportunities to kind of experiment and display that experiment at a convention or something like that. But what about internships?
Yeah, absolutely. Internships are huge, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you can do at least 2 internships during college, that's great. If you can do more, even better. Co-ops, definitely very beneficial. And there are also a lot of opportunities to be going to classes while you're still interning. So you can do 20 hours a week part-time in the office and still be going to classes at Georgia Tech. So yeah, internships are big, and they usually end up hiring from their internship pool before they'll hire just, randomly from other universities or other students that they don't have experience with.
That makes a lot of sense. So you heard it from the engineer's mouth, folks. Internships, take them seriously. They not only give you experience, but they potentially give you a leg up in employment once you graduate with that degree. So with that, that exhausts all of our questions. And now we are going to move into my favorite segment of the show. So you think you're smarter than a rhino. And what this is really aiming to do is not highlight what you do or don't know, but really serve as a learning opportunity for everyone listening and watching. And these are questions that if you were a member of Club Rhino Plus, you would know the answer to, because we have 4 courses: entrepreneurial personal finance, how to treat your personal finances like an entrepreneur would; secure your securities course, how we recommend that you invest in the stock market; start a business, which is I think becoming an extremely popular option, especially within our generation, and real estate investing. I believe real estate to be the number 1 asset class of the 4 asset classes. So that is my not so shameless plug to open a Club Rhino Plus account. With that, we are going to jump right in to So You Think You're Smarter Than a Rhino. The first question is, what are the 4 types of asset classes?
Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and then the 4th one is not coming to me.
That was a good effort. The answer is real estate, commodities, securities, and business. Securities is stock. And so subcategories of that asset class are going to include bonds, mutual funds, things like that, cash or paper assets. But the other three are asset classes that people really are very unfamiliar with. And our definition is different than the textbook definition. But we think it's important because when you are talking about a diversified portfolio, what people tend to speak on is one of those asset classes. Oh, I'm diversified because I have money in the tech sector and I have money in consumer goods, but it's all a security, right? And all of those are stocks. So you're not really diversified if you have a bunch of different stocks in different sectors of the market. You become diversified if you have at least two of those four asset classes: real estate, commodities, securities, and business. Those are the four asset classes that we teach people about. Next question. What is the maximum contribution that you can make to a 401k in 2022?
You know what? I thought a number. I'm going to say 25K.
Man, that's close. And the answer is $20,500.
Okay.
And if you are over the age of 50, you get to contribute an additional $6,500 for a total of $27,000 per year in contributions to your employer-sponsored plan. Question number 3. What is the equation for achieving financial independence?
Assets minus debt equals, I don't know.
Okay. I really want to, you know what we need to do? I think we need to start incorporating like phone a friend or something.
Yeah, 100%.
I think we need to incorporate.
I'm going to get all of these wrong.
So the equation for achieving financial independence is when your passive income exceeds your expenses, you are considered to be financially independent. So if you have 10 investment properties producing $5,000 a month in income, and you have $4,500 in expenses, you are considered to be financially independent because you are no longer trading your time for money. So that is the equation. Passive income exceeding your expenses allows you to claim the awesome title of being financially independent. So number 4, when thinking about real estate investment properties, what does the IRS allow you to do that can result in a passive loss? Number 1, the IRS allows you to claim repairs and maintenance expenses as a deduction. Number 2, you can claim $2,000 a year in marketing expenses. Number 3, you can claim property taxes. Number 4, you can claim depreciation. And number 5, all of these things contribute to a passive loss.
So I'm pretty confident that you can write off repair costs, because I would assume they're like business expenses. And I'm also sure that D, you can write off depreciation. So I'm going to go with E, all of the above.
Okay, I understand the logic, but because we said passive loss, the actual answer is just depreciation. All the other things are allowed to happen. The $2,000 is arbitrary. Whatever your actual marketing expenses is what you would deduct. But in order to claim a passive loss, you're going to need that depreciation. So it's kind of confusing. It's all explained in the real estate investing course, but this is why real estate, honestly, is one of the number one assets. I love it a lot because you can also take that passive loss and count it against your W-2 income up to $25,000, depending on the amount of W-2 income that you make.
Okay.
All right, but good attempt. Number 5, what is the difference between an index fund and a mutual fund?
An index fund is where you structure the fund to follow the market trends of a specific sector, right? So if I'm looking at the healthcare sector, I will have stocks in that fund related to the healthcare sector, and it will follow how that sector moves, right? A mutual fund is where you and other investors can pull their money into a mutual fund to, I guess, either buy stocks or invest in a company or something like that. That's probably not the complete definition, but yeah.
Well, I'm gonna give you half credit because your definition of the index fund is 100% accurate. Mutual funds are actively or passively managed and are created by fund managers. So within that mutual fund, you can have a whole host of things completely unrelated to a specific index or industry or sector of the markets, but there's no one index that it's tracking. It's based on the fact that that fund manager believes that these sectors or these specific companies are ripe for high growth. So they label it high growth, they find those companies, put it into the fund, and then consumers go to like a Vanguard or Charles Schwab or whatever the brokerage is, and they purchase that with the expectation that it's going to engage in high growth. So that's the difference. And the last question, the most important question, what does Rhino stand for?
Can you spell it for me?
Can I use it in a sentence?
Can you use it in a sentence?
All right. So Rhino is spelled R-I-N-O. For
Okay.
all of those listening and may not be aware.
Real investment knowledge without the K. Opportunities.
I appreciate that. Take that silent K off there. It doesn't really need to be on there. Knowledge is now spelled N. Got it. With an N. Got it. You said real. It's real education. That is the R. So that's close. You said investments. It's investments in performing assets. So also close. The N is no bad debt. And we talk about the difference between good debt and bad debt. And then the O is oversight of those assets. So I just wanted to thank you for playing. We really appreciate your time, Mr. Blanchard, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.